You've carried a strength that most people can't even imagine, walking through storms without breaking, keeping your head lifted when others thought you'd bow. This entire journey was never about you being defeated. It was always about the unveiling of how unstoppable you truly are. Those who tried to cage your light are now the ones trapped in the shadows of their own choices. While they believed their grip on power was ironclad, the very weight of what they built has collapsed on their shoulders. What they thought would bury you became the soil that pushed you higher. Their whispers, their schemes, their secret gatherings of malice, all of it has flipped back into their faces. The tables weren't just turned, they were shattered, and the pieces cut only those who set them. What they thought was your downfall was simply the stage for your reveal. Every dart they aimed is turned into testimony, every scheme a confession, every plot a record of their own undoing. They assumed you were playing the same small game, but you were never bound to their board. You were breathing air from a height they couldn't climb. You are not here by accident, not a presence that begged for approval or validation. You were placed, positioned, and sent as a marker that would test intentions and expose the unseen. They thought you were just another piece of the scenery. In reality, you were the mirror of their true reflection. And now, everything they labored to conceal has burst open on its own. The more they forced control, the quicker the truth erupted. They tried bending the unbendable, tried rewriting what has always been unshakable. What they broke was not you. It was the laws they refused to respect. The end was never in question, only the moment of revelation. While they wore themselves out chasing illusions, you stood anchored in quiet certainty. Your silence was not weakness. It was the sound of knowing that time always sides with truth. You've been carrying a calm that unsettles those who thrive on disorder, because your stillness is not weakness, it is armor. Every attempt they made to shake, you only revealed how impenetrable your center truly is. The louder the storms raged, the clearer it became that you were never standing unprotected. And now the fractures are surfacing in places they thought were unshakable. Those who once stood shoulder to shoulder with them are beginning to step aside. Old loyalties are dissolving like ink in water, and those who once vowed allegiance are suddenly unsure if they ever knew them at all. It isn't coincidence. It's the reflex of self-preservation as hidden truths begin to pulse through even the coldest of hearts. What was once praised without question is now being examined under a harsher light. The same channels that carried their narratives are now unraveling their fabrications, thread by thread. The very frameworks that once kept them safe are now turning inward, demanding answers they cannot provide. Doors they tried to lock are being pried open, and secrets they buried are clawing their way back into daylight. Invisible forces are dismantling their scaffolding of influence piece by piece. Connections they believe permanent are being cut by hands they cannot see. Every alliance forged through falsehood is evaporating, and every scheme held together by deception is collapsing under its own weight. The unraveling is too precise to be human, too complete to be coincidence. The fortress they built on illusions is cracking, and they cannot patch the holes fast enough. What they constructed to trap others has become the very structure closing in around them. They are now surrounded, not by enemies, but by the consequences of every manipulative act they thought would never surface. The unraveling isn't loud, but it is unstoppable. Piece after piece of their manufactured empire is being peeled away, leaving them exposed in the very arenas where they once boasted control. The silence they once mistook for your defeat was actually the sound of inevitability closing in on them. Now they find themselves gripped not by triumph, but by dread. The air around them is heavy with the realization that nothing they built through schemes can withstand the collapse. Fear is taking root, not because of what is visible, but because of the undeniable sense that something greater has already written the ending. The kind of dread swallowing them now is not triggered by visible threats, but by the crushing awareness that they have been wrestling with something far beyond their reach. They assumed they were confronting flesh and bone, but what they struck against was an unseen foundation holding the order of existence itself. This turning of events is not a personal triumph. It is correction on a scale they never imagined. The balance of the unseen realm is being reset, clearing out the distortions they created, restoring rightful placement where theft once reigned, and removing barriers that were never theirs to erect. The pathways they tried to barricade are reopening, not just as they were, but multiplied in value. The bonds they attempted to poison are either being healed beyond recognition or replaced with far greater counterparts. Their supposed brilliance is unraveling into hollow delusion, and the alliances they trusted are crumbling into self-destructive entanglements. The practices they clung to in desperation are turning against them, detonating with surgical precision. They drew from wells they could not sustain, tied themselves to contracts they did not comprehend, and now the very powers they borrowed from are demanding repayment in ways they cannot escape. What they mistook for sabotage of your path was actually propulsion. Each obstacle pressed you into deeper wisdom. Each rumor became the backdrop for truth to speak louder. Each exit they forced only redirected you toward concealed entrances they never had access to. They were fueling the rise they sought to prevent. But this unraveling extends far past surface-level consequences. Forces that once shielded their hidden dealings are vanishing. The dark resources that provided strategy and cover are withdrawing, even turning on their former partners, leaving them naked in battles they once thought were rigged in their favor. The entire underground network sustaining them is collapsing from within. Hidden agreements, encrypted conversations, and private gatherings are spilling into the open, carried through streams they cannot silence. Even the very tools they once used to frame you are now projecting their downfall, and the restraints meant for you are fastening onto their own hands, while their voices shrink to silence under the weight of undeniable justice. What they crafted to discredit you has instead become the archive of their own downfall. Every distorted story they spread now showcases their hunger for deceit. Every barrier they engineered against you is now visible as proof of their corrupt motives. What looked like endless assaults has been rewritten into records confirming your resilience, turning their attempts into chronicles of your strength. This moment is not simply about your name being restored. It is about a universal reordering that surpasses human understanding. What is unfolding is more than vindication. It is elevation into a realm where your former trials appear as early lessons preparing you for heights they could never imagine. Those who once denied you access now compete for your involvement, unable to ignore the authority you carry. The very sectors that once locked you out are reshaping themselves to align with your vision. Communities that once pushed you aside now lean toward you with open hands. Your voice, once muted by opposition, is rising louder than ever, carried by channels they can no longer influence, amplified in spaces they cannot enter. Your impact, once suffocated by their interference, is stretching beyond their reach forever. The resources they try to choke into scarcity are multiplying from directions they cannot trace. This is no mere restoration. It is increase upon increase, an overflow that no force can drain. Every loss they engineered has become the soil for greater abundance. Connections that were severed are being replaced with alliances designed for your purpose. Doors they forced shut are being substituted by entrances leading to stages beyond their wildest reach. What was once withheld from you is now being returned with multiplied significance. Every delay is being compensated with acceleration that carries your name. Their spheres of influence are dissolving, rerouted toward those who stood against deception. What they once monopolized is shifting hands, redirected toward causes they sought to erase. Even their platforms are being turned into vessels of truth, stripped of corruption, and rebuilt for integrity, with your influence woven into the very structure of what remains. Everything they erected to harm is now reconstructed for good, with you placed as a central figure in its redirection. This is not about seizing power to dominate, but about wielding influence that restores, uplifts, and transforms. The seat they fought to keep from you is no longer theirs to claim. It is yours by right, and its authority will echo long after their names are forgotten, serving as a testimony to justice that cannot be silenced. They believed status could shield them from accountability, but the echo of true judgment reaches deeper than any human ruling. The sound of finality doesn't come from wooden benches or black robes, but from realms where every secret is logged and every motive weighed. The cycle is closing with flawless symmetry, and what was hidden in the dark is now cataloged as part of their downfall. The restraints visible on their wrists are only symbols of something greater unraveling. They never had ownership over your existence, because the breath within you was never theirs to command. The one who placed life in you has already shown that he alone determines both its preservation and its reclamation. What unfolds isn't retaliation, but the inevitability of principles no one escapes. The cycle of return is precise. What is sent out inevitably circles back, carrying more weight than it left with. This story is not ending in vindication. It is beginning with ascent. The force that steadied you in obscurity is now unveiling you in prominence. The same unseen hand that documented each injustice is now lifting you into visibility. The legacy being constructed out of these events will shape the understanding of power for generations yet to come. But make no mistake, truth is still being fought over, distorted in attempts to delay its revelation, even as its clarity grows sharper. This path is not for the half-committed. It belongs to those prepared to lead with courage, those willing to pierce the illusions and act regardless of resistance. In quiet gatherings, wisdom is exchanged that cuts through distractions. There are strategies and teachings long hidden that are now surfacing for those prepared to carry them. The trials of human courts are merely shadows of outcomes already written in higher realms. Watch as the legal systems they once manipulated shift direction, pursuing with boldness the very individuals they once protected. Evidence arrives in ways that defy explanation. Records thought destroyed resurface, encrypted data unravels, and timing strikes with surgical precision. Voices once silenced are now breaking through. Testimonies emerge from unlikely mouths, shaking the ground beneath their defenses. Jurisdictions once bent in their favor now move with relentless momentum against them. And the same tools once used to monitor and trap you are recording their own schemes, delivering proof into the hands of those determined to bring them to account. They funneled resources through hidden corridors, believing their trails would vanish into endless mazes. Yet specialists are following the flow with uncanny accuracy, uncovering layers of deceit that seem impossible to mask. What appears as routine investigation on the surface is backed by movements in unseen realms, where no firewall or offshore vault can shield them. The guardians that once cloaked their schemes have withdrawn entirely, leaving them naked in the open. Powers they once called upon for strategy are not only gone, they've shifted allegiance, working actively against those they previously upheld. The scaffolding of secrecy has collapsed into a tribunal built from the very systems they corrupted. The ceremonies they performed in hidden places are no longer concealed. The vows they swore in silence have turned into public confessions. Every symbolic act they carried out to secure dominance has become a record of their defiance against higher order. What they thought was preservation was actually the blueprint of their undoing. The agreements they entered into with unseen powers are being canceled at a level they cannot appeal. What they owe is greater than they can repay, with debts measured not in currency, but in essence. The very partners they relied on are demanding collections, and the price extracted cuts deeper than financial loss. They are learning that collapse of the spirit cannot be offset by the size of one's bank account. The reversal is sharp. Years spent attempting to break your resolve now mirror back onto them as their own minds fracture under the pressure. The unraveling is not symbolic. It is tangible, leaving them stripped of clarity and stability. Every tool they once wielded to unsettle you has been turned inward with amplified force. Arrests ripple into betrayals, betrayals into investigations, and investigations into cascading convictions. The momentum is unstoppable because the intelligence driving it knows every thread, every connection, every hidden exchange at once. Those tasked with exposing their crimes move with uncanny precision, as though guided by insight beyond human skill. Their private messages unravel, their calls and encrypted signals are intercepted by awareness that requires no warrant. Above it all, an authority that surpasses all courts and borders ensures there's nowhere left to hide, as evidence aligns itself into patterns so undeniable even their strongest defenses dissolve. Testimonies are being given with a boldness that defies intimidation. Decisions in the courts are being handed down with striking consistency in favor of truth rather than influence. It feels as if the entire legal framework has been infused with clarity that no bribe or manipulation can distort. Yet confinement behind bars is only the shallow beginning of a deeper reckoning unfolding against them. Their reputations are unraveling so completely that their very names will serve as eternal cautionary markers. The stories told about them will not be tales of triumph, but examples of what happens when arrogance collides with forces beyond human control. Even the wealth they amassed through oppression is being redirected into purposes they once fought to suppress. The authority they clung to with violence is being transferred into the hands of those they sought to silence. Their former reach is now being funneled into missions aligned with integrity and truth. Every role they obtained through deceit is being stripped and restored to those who labored honestly. Even the ventures they once financed in secret are being repurposed for works that uplift and heal. The very systems they hijacked through fear are being released from captivity. Structures once bent toward selfish agendas are being realigned with their original mandate. What seemed impossible is happening before all eyes. Voices they attempted to bury are now being projected across platforms they could never create. The silencing they orchestrated has birthed amplification beyond their control. Opportunities they blocked are reappearing on scales they never envisioned. Spaces once locked against you are being replaced by doors flung open on global stages. The resources they withheld are multiplying through streams invisible to their monitoring. What they tried to strangle into scarcity is blossoming into abundance that grows faster than they can comprehend. True justice operates with unmatched efficiency. It doesn't just dismantle corruption, it simultaneously constructs new pathways for those who stood in truth. It doesn't simply punish, it rewards. It doesn't only remove resistance, it generates favor. Every destructive attempt leveled against you is being translated into momentum for your rise. Their downfall is not the conclusion of your journey, but the foundation of your expansion. The same events marking their collapse are sealing your advancement. Their obstruction has become your propulsion. Their attempts to erase you have become the ink that writes your testimony. The justice unfolding is more than retribution. It is restoration, acceleration, and undeniable proof that higher order always prevails. What unfolds before the world is not a quiet correction, but a universal showcase. Your rise is not confined to personal vindication. It serves as a living broadcast that unseen order is real and unstoppable. Each downfall witnessed, each transfer of influence, becomes a marker that higher forces have intervened in undeniable ways. Every success that crowns your journey testifies that unseen principles outweigh human manipulation. Outcomes are being shaped not by politics or favoritism, but by laws deeper than the soil of the earth itself. The sentences handed down stretch beyond prison walls into dimensions where no defense can be mounted, no loophole can be found, and no appeal can overturn the decree. They are standing before a tribunal that never miscalculates, one that knows every hidden intention, every buried detail, and every secret plan. Judgment here is untainted, eternal, and absolute. What they tried to dismantle in you is now being rebuilt with precision, and what they sought to destroy is being transformed into foundations that will outlast their memory. Every dream they strangled is returning stronger, rising from the ashes with more power than it ever held before. Every assignment they tried to delay is being carried out with greater backing than they ever imagined possible. The visible contrast between their collapse and your ascent is more than poetic. It is permanent testimony that order beyond human reach governs reality. They could never claim ownership over your existence because it was never within their jurisdiction. The breath within you was authorized by realms they cannot touch, upheld by decrees they cannot erase. What they attempted to remove has only revealed how powerless they truly are against the one who set you in motion. Your very being was stamped with the seal of the highest authority long before they plotted against you. That authorization does not expire, cannot be revoked, and will not be challenged. Every inhale you take proves that their weapons failed before they were even formed, because your presence on this earth was not theirs to regulate. And now, in the same instant that their voices are fading, your influence is intensifying. The stage of your life is no longer a hidden corner. It is an elevated platform from which generations will learn that justice is not only inevitable, but also eternal. Their decline is not just their end. It is the backdrop against which your purpose shines brightest. They survived only because mercy held back the tide. Living on grace, they mocked and resisted. Their borrowed breath was never their own, and the protection they despised was the only reason their collapse didn't come sooner. That shield has now been lifted, and the harvest of their choices is unfolding with a precision that leaves no room for denial. This is the unveiling of your time, the undeniable beginning of your reign. The evidence has already been weighed by judges who cannot be swayed, and the sentence has been carried out by powers immune to corruption. Their confinement stretches across realms both tangible and unseen, while your authority expands in every direction. The locks clanging behind them are the same keys unlocking freedom for you. As they are bound by chains of consequence, you are stepping into release. What imprisons them signifies what liberates you. The balance of power has shifted completely, and there is no going back. The very punishments they endure now stand as confirmation of your vindication. Higher law doesn't only remove corruption, it installs rightful authority in its place. The verdict of eternity has echoed across dimensions, and it cannot be overturned. Records remain flawless, and the principle stands unchallenged. True justice never rests. They sought to seize what wasn't theirs, but the tables have turned. Life itself has now claimed them in ways they cannot resist. The grand reversal is here, their sentence etched into permanence, and your dominion begins without contest. The spaces that now confine them are not simply prisons of stone and steel. They are monuments to unbreakable truth. Every bar, every wall, every locked gate is a reminder that finite hands cannot war against infinite decree. Their story closes not with triumph, but with collapse, while yours opens with ascension. What was once attempted against you has become the proof of your resilience. The judgment they evaded for years has finally caught them, and your destiny has stepped fully into its appointed hour. They now sit in rooms surrounded by concrete and silence, forced to face the weight of every choice that led them here. There is no luxury item to soften the sound of regret when the mind itself becomes the prosecutor. Their names, once spoken in boardrooms and praised in circles of influence, now trigger avoidance. Calls that used to be returned within minutes go unanswered, and the visitor logs remain blank. The financial empires they built on deceit are dissolving before their eyes. Legal fees mount as accounts freeze, and the wealth they worship turns useless in the face of judgment. The loneliness they once tried to force upon you has circled back upon them, magnified by the knowledge that their isolation is earned while yours never was. This imprisonment is not ordinary confinement, it is a mirror of cosmic balance. They carry a mark that separates them even in crowded halls. Others sense it, even those hardened by years of crime. Something in the air around them unsettles everyone who gets too close, creating an invisible boundary that no handshake or conversation can cross. They aren't just prisoners, they are walking examples of the consequences of defiance against higher order. Even the staff who escort them, unaware of their deeper role, move as instruments of judgment. The routine of security checks and locked doors becomes a ceremony of balance being restored. Every shift, every correction, every oversight of their time inside serves a higher design far beyond what any earthly handbook could dictate. Sleep offers no escape. The night is invaded by relentless reminders of what they tried to erase. The faces of those they harmed and the voices they silenced return to them in dreams they cannot control. Rest becomes punishment, and every morning feels like waking into a sentence already carried out. The abandonment they now endure is deeper than physical solitude. It is a vacuum created by the withdrawal of trust, influence, and protection, leaving them stripped of everything that once gave them confidence. They are cut off, not only from the world outside, but from the very energies they depended on to sustain their illusion of control. This isolation is more than punishment. It is transformation of their own schemes into testimony. What they once designed as a cage for another has become their own reality, and the very silence they now sit in testifies louder than any accusation. Their downfall is not hidden in obscurity. It is displayed as an eternal reminder that justice, once set in motion, cannot be undone. Food no longer satisfies when guilt has stripped away appetite. Moments designed for recreation collapse into hours of torment as memories return with relentless force. Fortunes they hoarded through deception are dissolving at a speed no economist can explain, uncovered by investigators who trace money as if guided by unseen maps beyond human reach. Accounts hidden in distant jurisdictions are suddenly exposed, as though unseen codes unlock every encrypted vault. The irony deepens as diverted funds are redirected toward the very causes they work to destroy. Wealth taken from the vulnerable is now flowing back with returns that surpass natural calculation. Assets disguised through layers of fraudulent corporations are being dismantled and funneled into endeavors that bring healing where harm once ruled. The empire they built upon exploitation is being dismantled piece by piece, its fragments repurposed for the very restoration they resisted. Meanwhile, claim after claim emerges from those long forgotten, each demand adding new weight to the judgment pressing against them. People they once treated as disposable are now standing in courtrooms, forcing accountability with evidence that spans generations. Lawsuits mount, uncovering years of systemic abuse, creating liabilities that stretch far beyond their wealth. Entire teams of lawyers unearth connections and schemes that show patterns too massive to ignore. The scales of justice lean heavily, and the tilt is irreversible. Families once insulated by privilege are now caught in the collapse. Estates are seized, trust funds confiscated, and possessions once flaunted in arrogance are auctioned off to repair damage. The riches accumulated through corruption are being converted into restitution that will outlast their lifetimes, ensuring that their heirs inherit not abundance, but consequence.